Oh, watch out for this. I'm about to break out some dark lightning. Stop providing color commentary like a sports broadcast. Even worse, Veldora didn't launch dark lightning at all. It was death-calling wind instead. CL cancelled it out, and Rimuru could have dodged it anyway, but he was frustrated by the misleading advice. You call that lightning? That was death-calling wind. It was about to kill me. My complaints were met with a half-chuckled excuse. Oh, sorry, qua ha ha ha. It seems I've yet to gain a full grasp of my body. I can sense myself activating a skill well enough, but I can only identify it right about half the time. Realizing Veldora wasn't being helpful, Rimuru decided it was safer to ignore his predictions. All right, you don't need to do that, so can you just shut up for me? It wouldn't be very funny if I trusted random nonsense from you at this critical moment, and it killed me, would it? I'm really disappointed in you. This made Veldora start panicking a bit. Wait, Rimuru, wait. I'm doing my best here. Let me help you a little. Despite Veldora's desperate pleas, Rimuru knew he had to prioritize reason over emotion. Just hearing Veldora's voice eased his concerns. Rimuru, relieved that Veldora was all right, listened as Veldora responded with his usual energetic laugh. Qua ha 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 ha, of course I am. I'm the strongest of all dragons, Veldora proclaimed confidently. Then Veldora explained, besides, it wasn't Ludora who cut off our soul corridor, but I myself. I have never truly lost in battle at all. Hearing this, Rimuru was puzzled. What do you mean? He asked. Oh, it's simple. When I was busy focusing on that man Kondo's attack, Ludora tried to assert control over me. I was furious about this. The three of them tackling me at once, my sister included. How truly unfair. But I wanted to avoid the worst-case scenario, so I reluctantly made the decision to cut the corridor away, Veldora explained. Rimuru couldn't help but feel that Veldora had been a little careless. Stop acting like that was so noble of you. What the hell were you even doing? I've been constantly telling you never to let your guard down, Rimuru reprimanded. Qua ha 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 ha. I never thought you'd be lecturing me under these circumstances. Veldora seemed to be enjoying the situation. Deciding to move on, Rimuru asked, so the decision you made was to shut down our soul corridor? Indeed, I reasoned that Ludora's domination would have affected not only me but you as well through the corridor, Veldora replied. Understanding that Veldora had turned off the corridor to protect him, Rimuru felt he couldn't be mad anymore. All right, great. Well, in that case, sit tight while I take care of this. Very well. I have not a worry in the world, Veldora responded confidently. Rimuru appreciated being relied upon. Right, I'll have you free in a moment, so hold out a bit. Qua ha 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 ha. How wonderful to hear. I will trust in that, my friend, Veldora exclaimed. Rimuru now knew what had happened to Veldora. He had lost control of his body, but his core was still intact. Since Veldora didn't have the power to regain control at the moment, Rimuru knew he had to sort it out for him. With the core intact, Rimuru felt confident he could handle the rest. Rimuru asked Ciel, if we have Veldora's core in hand, would we be able to revive his ultimate ability, Veldora, Lord of the Storm? Not a problem. All information related to the skill has been retained, so once a soul corridor is reconnected to Veldora's core, the ultimate ability can be restored, Ciel assured. Satisfied with the plan, Rimuru knew he just had to consume Veldora and retrieve his core. With a clear path to solving the problem, Rimuru decided to act quickly. He had two main issues, the time limit and the location of Veldora's core. Using haste and thought had minimized the time spent conversing, leaving him with over 3 minutes to work with. The tricky part was pinpointing the core's exact location within Veldora's body. Communication via telepathy helped, but a careless strike could destroy the core, leading to mission failure and Veldora's reincarnation. This had to be avoided, as the core was defenseless, detached from his main body. Swallowing Veldora whole wasn't possible without his consent. Rimuru considered weakening him to cut down his magicule count, or using predation carefully to avoid damaging the core. He realized that damaging Veldora's body was risky, as it could be like dealing with a fragile figurine. Attacks without the effects of an ultimate skill wouldn't cause much damage to Veldora's sturdy frame. True dragons were incredibly durable, so Rimuru knew that attacks were relatively safe but unpredictable. Given Veldora's lack of control over his body, any wrong move could lead to disaster. Deciding not to launch any attacks until he located the core, Rimuru chose to use predation to eat away at Veldora bit by bit, hoping to find the core in time. Though it felt like a race against the clock, he had no other option. With 3 minutes potentially being all the time in the world for him, Rimuru filed the time issue in the back of his mind, turned Belzebub up to full power, and began consuming Veldora. Rimuru's body reverted from human to slime form, transforming into a viscous, irregularly shaped blob. This change was Ciel's doing, optimizing Rimuru's shape for the hostile predation. The more contact surface with Veldora, the more efficient the process. Rimuru's shifting body spread around Veldora, but the dragon was massive, making Rimuru's efforts seem minuscule. Despite the daunting task, Rimuru pressed on, accelerating the hostile consumption and activating Soul Consume to search for Veldora's core. This endeavor would have been impossible without Ciel's assistance. Ciel's computational power seemed far beyond what Raphael had possessed, proving that not only monsters evolve when named. Thanks to Ciel, things were progressing smoothly overall, but obstacles remained. Rimuru was in intense pain as Veldora's body detected the intrusion and resisted fiercely. The storm dragon's aura was causing Rimuru's body to disintegrate. Rimuru experienced intense pain as Veldora's body resisted fiercely, causing his own body to disintegrate. The struggle between consumption and resistance intensified. Determined to save Veldora, Rimuru asked, "Everything all right, Ciel?" "Leave it to me," Ciel responded confidently. With Ciel's trustworthy reply, Rimuru expanded predation. The energy fed on was usually converted into his power, but against a true dragon, it destroyed his body from the inside. Infinite regeneration helped rebuild and replace lost parts, but Rimuru had to analyze and assess the energy first to avoid damaging Veldora's core. Though tedious, this was the best way forward, as decided with Ciel. As Rimuru continued his work, he began to worry about the ticking clock, but still had faith in Ciel. They were guaranteed to make it in time. During this process, Ciel mentioned it had some free time for analysis work. "What do you mean you had some free time? I'm kind of in horrifying pain right now. What are you even up to?" Rimuru asked. "I was performing an analyze and assess process on Velgryn's powers, examining her cardinal acceleration while she was isolated in complex space," Ciel explained. "Wait, you figured it out?" "I failed to reproduce the power, but it is possible to develop a very similar technique," Ciel revealed. "You're crazy, Ciel." Rimuru realized Ciel might always be reading his surface consciousness, and resolved to be more aware of his mental barriers, thinking things through on a deeper level. Rimuru was intrigued by the prospect of imitating Velgryn's most powerful move, despite the difficulty of copying ultimate skills. Curious about what else Ciel had been analyzing, he asked directly. Right on cue, Ciel eagerly responded, "Right. I have also finished analyzing Stormblast. By taking advantage of the remainders from the skill Veldora, Lord of the Storm, this skill is now available for use." This was major news, practically making Rimuru forget the pain. The analysis sounded incredibly difficult, but Ciel confirmed its accuracy, revealing even more significant information. "What else?" Rimuru asked, intrigued. "That is the correct way to see it, yes," Ciel confirmed. "Like, are you serious?" "Of course. So would you like to evolve into a true dragon? Yes, no?" Rimuru couldn't help but laugh evilly, marveling at the yes-no ultimatum. Without hesitation, he commanded, "Yes!" Instantly, the pain, burning, and agony vanished. The storm dragon's aura no longer penetrated Rimuru because he now had a draconic aura of his own. Now, the more energy Rimuru consumed, the more he stored, causing his magicule count to soar higher. He feared it might expand uncontrollably, risking an explosion. "Not a problem. I will provide perfect energy management," Ciel assured. "Yeah, I'm sure you will," Rimuru replied, confident in Ciel's capabilities. With Ciel's assistance, there was no need to worry. Rimuru's true dragon self now had an identical number of magicules as Veldora. Breaking through the limit, a new true dragon was born. Yet he knew any further delay in dealing with the storm dragon would be fatal. "You have won, Rimuru. I am rather surprised to see you become a true dragon, but it seems my eyes never deceived me after all. Kwa ha ha ha." Veldora rejoiced, acting as if he had raised Rimuru from a baby. Despite Veldora's jubilation, Rimuru knew it was too early to declare victory. Veldora's core was the key, and he still didn't know its location. Determined to finish the task, Rimuru steeled himself. "Right, let's get this over with," he declared. "How dare some puppet like this call itself the Storm Dragon? How dare they?" "Consume it all, Belzebuth," Rimuru commanded. At his order, Belzebuth devoured the Storm Dragon's body with tremendous speed and glee. The conflict had become one-sided, the one who eats and the one who's eaten. It was the very embodiment of survival of the fittest. Feel free to share more of your story, and I'll continue rephrasing it for you. The epic battle concluded quietly, marking an evolution, a new birth, and a bold step into the future. The remnants of energy leaked away, filling the area with a blinding light, a light of blessing, celebrating the birth of a new truth. This light came from Rimuru's old body, which hadn't transformed into a true dragon. As it was converted into pure energy, even this was consumed by Rimuru, fading from the world. With that, Rimuru's goal was achieved in truly perfect form. When the light subsided, there was only one life form left, an indeterminate one. Veldora was gone. And now, as Velgrynd realized, the slime, the demon lord Rimuru, had consumed it. According to what they knew, Rimuru was born from a pool of magicules that had leaked out of the sealed Veldora. But now that the slime had consumed the storm dragon, its father in a way, and become the fifth true dragon of the world, a transformation occurred. The ultimate slime took on the form of a human being after a few moments, holding a blade and wearing no clothing. He appeared between the age of 15 and 16, standing about 5'3". Small, it was fair to say. However, the amount of magicules contained within him was not only comparable to Veldora's, it far outclassed him. Those golden eyes, beautifully almond-shaped, looked capable of seeing through everything. His hair, silver with a blue tinge, shone white like the moon. He had an androgynous appearance with a face that was more touchingly sweet than ravishing, but his divine presence transcended beauty itself. Now that pale skin was enveloped in an evil aura of black and gold. He whispered something, an expression of frustration, and the demonic energy covering his body transformed into a divine full-body outfit, jet black in color. This was crafted through the skill Create material, a specialty from the demon race. And even though it only used the magicules leaking out from his body, it was impossible to gauge just how strong it would be as armor. Like flipping a switch, Rimuru suppressed the flow of excess energy. Then he grinned out of one corner of his mouth, satisfied at what he saw. Velgrynd, watching from her prison cell, was stunned by the sight before her. The battle between Veldora, her own brother, and the demon lord Rimuru should have been overwhelmingly in Veldora's favor. It seemed impossible for the slime to surpass him in any way. Otherwise, it simply meant that they had been equals from the beginning. Is it a coincidence, then? No. Are you saying he just happened to be born right here, right now? Velgrynd wondered, floundering in a sea of thoughts. She struggled to admit this astonishing conclusion. How could she? A monster born near a true dragon, with a soul capable of accepting draconic energy, seemed too improbable to comprehend. If Rimuru truly was the fifth true dragon, that would make him Velgrund's younger brother. But it happened because he fed off Veldora, and Velgrynd couldn't accept calling him a true dragon. To her, he was something akin to one at best, a notion she refused to accept. Her instinct screamed to crush him here and now, the only way to avenge her brother's death. Veldora, her darling little brother, bratty and rambunctious, was still boundlessly free. She envied him. Although she intended to use him as a pawn temporarily, she had no intention of erasing him from existence. Once her plans were complete, she planned to give him his freedom back. But now, Velgryn's realization that Veldora had been consumed ignited a fury that obliterated all sense of reason. "My sweet little brother, how dare you!" she roared, her voice echoing with unrestrained rage. It was well past 200 seconds, and her roar shattered the insulated imprisonment. The enraged flame dragon, consumed by her wrath and with no regard for self-preservation, was now prepared to unleash all her hostility upon Rimuru. Rimuru, after consuming Veldora, found himself reborn into a new species, an ultimate slime, now part of the true dragons, albeit a quasi-member. Despite the transformation, he decided to keep the details to himself. Checking out his new body, Rimuru noticed his main form had grown considerably larger, resembling a high school student. He could adjust his appearance to any age, finding it neat to show himself growing. His slime form had also grown, making him a bit too large for easy carrying. Facing the problem of being totally naked, Rimuru used the skill create material, taught by Diablo, to craft clothes. The process was easy, and the results were impressive, comfortable and stylish in straight-up black. The armor level turned out to be God class, leaving Rimuru flabbergasted by his newfound power. Reflecting on his evolution, Rimuru realized the power channeled back to him through food chain from Benimaru and the gang, combined with Veldora's energy, had created his current state. He credited Ciel for this transformation, feeling it deserved the title Dr. Ciel. Despite Ciel's polite refusal of the title, Rimuru appreciated its capabilities and looked forward to their continued partnership, with Ciel's support. With his clothes sorted, Rimuru focused back on the task at hand. "Veldora, are you okay?" he asked. "Qua ha ha ha, quit making me repeat it again and again, but I am quite amazed to see you defeat my body without any hassle." Veldora replied with his usual energetic laugh. "Yeah, well, I was kinda too much in the zone to think about exactly what I did, but I'm so glad this worked out," Rimuru said, relieved they were both safe. Assuming Veldora's core was unscathed, Rimuru focused on reconnecting their soul corridor and regenerating the ultimate skill Veldora, Lord of the Storm. "Succeeded, no problems found," came Dr. Ciel's reliable response. With one objective achieved, Rimuru considered his next steps. Though he had Veldora back, his anger towards Emperor Ludora remained intense. Ending the war on an indecisive note could lead to future disasters. As a king, Rimuru felt it was his duty to eliminate any threats to his realm. Regaining his sense of reason, Rimuru began to think it might be acceptable to leave everyone but Ludora alone. But letting up now wasn't an option. Determined to see the job through, he knew the enemy might have their own plans. As if to confirm this, Velgrynd, alive and well, stared broodingly from her prison cell. Having safely freed Veldora, Rimuru noticed Velgrynd's infuriated expression. Defeating her wouldn't gain much, but if she posed a threat, it had to be eliminated. Ciel reassured Rimuru, "Velgrynd is no longer a threat. Not all of her skills have been analyzed yet, but a full set of countermeasures is in place." Dr. Ciel's confidence, bordering on arrogance, made Rimuru confident in their abilities. He realized that even in their last battle, he had fully defended against Velgrynd's attacks, and with Ciel shutting her down might not be much of a struggle. Staying true to his original plan, Rimuru intended to thoroughly smash the Empire, ending the conflict decisively. The Black Corps were in full force, with several hotspots on the battlefield. With Lieutenant Kondo, Damrada, the Emperor's 4 bodyguards and Ludora controlling Yuki's mind, Rimuru counted 8 powerful foes left to face. As Rimuru scanned the battlefield, he noted several threats already engaged with Benimaru and the others. Despite their strength, these threats didn't pose much danger to Rimuru, having evolved into a true dragon, with a magicule count nearly 10 times what it used to be. This evolution boosted both his power's quality and quantity, making him feel stronger than ever. Aware of the potential pitfalls of overconfidence, Rimuru resolved to keep his guard up and proceed carefully. Observing Benimaru and the others executing their orders with speed, Rimuru hoped they were sticking to the command of not getting themselves killed. Velgrynd, still ready to attack, remained Rimuru's immediate concern. He planned to deal with her first, before considering whether to back up his allies on the battlefield. In less than a second, Rimuru made up his mind. The next problem was how to fight Velgrynd. Considering starting with Release Storm Dragon, part of the ultimate skill Veldora, Lord of the Storm, Rimuru thought that calling Veldora would make it a 2-against-1 battle, all but assuring victory. Reflecting on the past, Rimuru realized that his magicule count was rarely filled to maximum, likely because Veldora was in a released state the whole time. Veldora and Rimuru were essentially one and the same, capable of resurrecting each other if needed. This dynamic didn't work like Velgrynd's parallel existences, but was still a form of invincibility. While Release Storm Dragon had some disadvantages, the advantages made it worth it. Rimuru promptly invoked it. "My sweet little brother, how dare you!" Velgrynd yelled, infuriated. "How dare she, am I right?" Rimuru thought. "Hey, you're the one who struck first. Besides, you tried to get me and Veldora to fight each other. What's up with that?" "Silence. The mere idea of Veldora being consumed by the likes of you makes me sick. I always knew he was inferior to me, but I cannot believe he would fall victim to a mere demon lord. I refuse to accept his annihilation, and I refuse to ever forgive you for it." Velgrynd shot out an absurd number of heat rays at Rimuru. They didn't affect him, but her anger stemmed from thinking Rimuru had killed Veldora. Rimuru thought invoking Release Storm Dragon would clear up the misunderstanding, but Veldora stopped him. "Gah! Well, wait, Rimuru!" Veldora interrupted. "What?" Rimuru asked, worried. "Rimuru, listen to me. My sister is enraged because she thinks I no longer exist. Is that right?" "Sounds like it. So if you can come out and we can explain matters, maybe we can avoid unnecessary combat, you know?" "You damned fool, stop being so reckless. If I reveal myself to be perfectly safe right this minute, it would be beyond awkward for me. She'll turn her rage from you to me instead," Veldora explained. Feeling foolish for listening to Veldora, Rimuru thought, I thought I was going to have a heart attack." It was clear Rimuru couldn't rely on Veldora at this critical moment. Just as he considered chewing Veldora out, Ciel interrupted. "One moment, please. I would like to take this opportunity perhaps to optimize Veldora's powers. I have already received permission from him, so please hold off invoking Release Storm Dragon until the skill reformation process is complete," Ciel said in its fetching and courteous tone. According to Ciel, Veldora's ultimate skill, Faust, Lord of Investigation, would be revised and evolved into the new ultimate skill Nyarlathotep, Lord of Chaos. This evolution promised a tremendous strength boost. What surprised Rimuru was how Ciel had already received permission from Veldora. "Since when were you acquainted?" Rimuru asked. Ciel responded, "He became aware of my existence after your evolution to Demon Lord, Sir Rimuru." Veldora offered further explanation. "I was aware of it, but only became fully sure about its presence a few moments ago. In the history of this planet, after all, I've never heard of a mere skill acquiring sentience for itself. But Sin-type abilities are known to contain something like an ego for themselves, so I began to suspect that it might have been possible after all." Veldora had suspected something since the Great Sage days. He had been observing peculiarities inside Rimuru's stomach, and once it evolved into Raphael, Lord of Wisdom, with Rimuru's Demon Lord evolution, Veldora was sure of its sentience. He had been conversing with it, thinking it was Rimuru all along. Acknowledging that Veldora was acquainted with Ciel, Rimuru asked, "Okay, so you knew each other, and you agreed to its proposal, is that right?" Indeed I did. I was hoping I could take on my own sister, but under these circumstances, Rimuru, I will leave it to you, Veldora replied. Though Veldora's sudden change of heart was amusing, Rimuru recognized Ciel's enthusiasm for refining skills. Despite the timing, it was better to optimize Veldora's powers while confined. Besides, Rimuru was interested in testing his newfound powers against Velgrynd. With Emperor Ludora still to face, this was a perfect opportunity to see how much he had grown. Velgrynd would serve as an ideal test, allowing Rimuru to measure his strength and abilities in various ways. Deciding it was the right time to test his skills, Rimuru resolved to keep an eye on his friends and prioritize skill testing unless they faced real danger. Ciel seemed happy with this approach. However, it had a follow-up proposal, combining the ultimate skills Veldora, Lord of the Storm, and Uriel, Lord of Vows, to form Hastur, Lord of Starwind. Rimuru, amused by Ciel's relentless tinkering, decided to reject the idea for the moment. Hey, you might find a better way to modify them later, right? So how about you take your time thinking about that stuff some other time, Rimuru suggested. Well said, Master. Understood. I will continue to search for greater accomplishments, Ciel replied. Relieved, Rimuru concentrated on the upcoming battle. Uriel had proven effective against Velgrynd, and he didn't want to lose that advantage. While confident in Belzebuth, he couldn't afford any mistakes and knew Ciel thought highly of him. Deciding to take its praise lightly, Rimuru prepared for the fight. Ciel's enthusiasm for skill modifications was a bit daunting, with its sights on Veldora for now. The real challenge would come after the battle, when all his Demon Lord friends might receive major skill modifications. Dr. Ciel would undoubtedly handle it swiftly, and Rimuru suspected it was already eager for the task. Despite these thoughts, Rimuru braced for the showdown with Velgrynd, ready to test his newfound powers and bring the conflict to a decisive end. The Crimson Dragon and Rimuru floated in the sky, glaring at each other. Velgrynd instantly shifted into her human form, and the battle began abruptly. She fired nuclear cannon strikes in rapid succession, slashing with her azure dragon sword. The main difference between Velgrynd's human and dragon forms came down to defensive force. Offensively, they were the same, but the human form was more energy efficient, allowing for longer fights. However, the dragon form had the undeniable advantage of sheer size, making her attacks cover a much wider range. The scale of her attacks allowed her to take on numerous opponents simultaneously, and even a single target would find it challenging to avoid her strikes. The formidable defense of the dragon form required equally large-scale attacks to be effective. Despite these advantages, Velgrynd chose her human form, likely aiming to abandon all defense and finish Rimuru off. Her fiendish rage enhanced her beauty, and she swung her blade with the intent to cut Rimuru in half. Rimuru wasn't about to take it lying down. Leaving the magic countermeasures to Ciel, he charged at Velgrynd with his own beloved blade, a straight sword of pure crimson steel. Velgrynd's azure dragon blade, created just now via Create Material, was God class, as was Rimuru's sword, which had apparently upgraded itself for its new true dragon owner. Although Velgrynd's weapon was a threat, Rimuru wasn't outclassed. In fact, with a shrill ting, Velgrynd's azure sword shattered. Velgrynd, shocked by the shattering of her sword, demanded an explanation. "What did you do there?" she asked, moving a prudent distance away. Rimuru hadn't done anything intentional. He had merely parried her attack. Ciel explained the difference in each weapon's performance. Rimuru's straight sword, a masterpiece forged by Kurobe, was leagues above Velgrynd's hastily manufactured model, a mere amalgamation of magicules. Although both were god-class, the quality difference was stark. Realizing this, Velgrynd, though seething with frustration, switched tactics. If materialized weapons were useless, she would rely on her own body. Claws extended from her hands as she assumed a kung fu-style stance. Rimuru, seeing this, put his sword away. He decided to experiment with his newfound strength, taking her on bare-handed. His statement about bullying the weak with a weapon further enraged Velgrynd, causing her to lose her cool. Velgryn's claw attacks were incredibly fast, but Rimuru's enhanced perception speed allowed him to see them clearly. Ever since naming Raphael as Ciel, his mind accelerate skill had increased to several 100 million times faster than reality. This allowed him to follow even the speed of light, giving him a significant advantage in avoiding Velgryn's attacks. The speed boost applied to the casting of magic as well. Spatial transport now worked nearly 1,000 times faster than before, allowing Rimuru to escape even light-speed attacks with a quick teleport if the attack was a certain distance away. 1 second could be prolonged into 10 or so years, creating the effect of a stationary world. While tough for normal people to withstand, Ciel could activate Mind Accelerate at key points to overcome this for Rimuru. Velgryn's super speed attack, moving several hundred times the speed of sound, closed in on Rimuru. The old Rimuru would have struggled with it, but now it wasn't worth breaking a sweat. "Too slow," Rimuru said, goading her further as he spatial transported behind her. Anticipating this, Velgrynd immediately reacted, proving she was no slouch. She truly was the best of the best. "Oh, you think so? I doubt you can move quicker than me. Is that an application of spatial transport? It's impressive you can move so naturally with it, without creating any spatial rifts. But once I know the trick, I can deal with it," Velgrynd said, calmer than expected. Ciel had anticipated this, predicting Velgrynd's next move. "But now that I've intervened to keep a given space fixed in time, no one can teleport themselves at all within. Too bad, huh?" Velgrynd's countermeasure nullified Rimuru's teleportation abilities within her fixed space. Transport via dominate space was no longer possible, reducing the battle to a contest of physical speed. Velgrynd now had the perfect environment to seal her victory. "I never thought I'd have to use my true clincher moves on someone like you," Velgrynd said. "You think stopping my movement was enough to let you win? Let me show you just how wrong you are," Rimuru retorted. "You are a brat, aren't you? If you hadn't killed my boy, I might have liked you, but this is the end now," Velgrynd replied, taking a stance. Kicking against thin air, she turned herself into a supersonic bullet, accelerating further as she shot forward. "Cardinal acceleration!" The shouted voice was already well behind Velgrynd. She transformed into a crimson meteor, approaching Rimuru at the physical limit of sub-light speed. This transformation allowed her to function as a guided missile, capable of going in any direction. This was cardinal acceleration in its purest form, a combination of teeming energy and pondering mass, the ultimate in destructive attacks. Ciel had thoroughly analyzed cardinal acceleration, perfectly discerning its true nature for Rimuru. Velgrynd was terrifying, but Ciel had her beat. On a whim, Rimuru created a Manus, which would spell the Flame Dragon's defeat. Ciel informed Rimuru, "As I planned, Master, I have deployed Belzebuth around your entire perimeter. No matter the angle of contact, predation on Velgrynd will proceed without complications." If Rimuru tried to eat a sentient target any normal way, resistance would make it difficult. But Velgrynd, by her own will, had transformed herself into a meteor-style projectile, placing all her energy into the attack and reducing her resistance. As a result, Velgrynd was now quarantined in Rimuru's complex space. How in the world did that happen?" Velgrynd exclaimed. The moment she thought she had finished Rimuru off, she found herself in a completely empty space. It must have been difficult for her to grasp the situation at first. "I won. You just sit there and be quiet, okay?" Rimuru informed her. I lost?" "That's what happened, yeah. And you can't escape my complex space, so I don't even think your parallel existence can exchange any energy with you," Rimuru explained. According to Dr. Ciel, Rimuru had consumed over 50% of Velgrynd's magicules. The replication next to Ludora had about 20%, and the remaining amount, nearly 30%, needed to be recovered. Velgrynd could recover about 10% of her magicules per day, so she'd be back at just under 50% in 3 days. However, since Rimuru had her replication inside him, she wouldn't recover quite that much. "If you want the full story, ask Veldora, all right?" Rimuru suggested. Veldora, what are you talking about? Velgrynd seemed puzzled. Veldora chimed in, ha. It is I, my sister. I hope you are faring well. Doesn't really look like it, but... Veldora? You weren't gone after all? Velgrynd was shocked. With the situation clarified, Rimuru hoped they could come to some kind of detente. He had achieved complete victory over Velgrynd, capturing the majority of her magicules in complex space. The Magical Beast Division, led by Commander Gardim and numbering some 30,000 troops, ascended into the skies in their airships. Velgrynd's valor had kept morale high, and with the enemy directly below them, the troops were eager to unleash their violent impulses. Gardim smiled to himself, seeing the perfect opportunity before him. He thought, maybe the world is no longer mine for the taking, but there's no doubt that my moment in the sun is here. Caligulio is defeated, and that boy Yuki has failed. I will be the only general left, the greatest of field commanders. And if I perform well in this battle, that's exactly what I'll be. In Gradim's view, the Western nations were not formidable enemies. While Hinata Sakaguchi might put up more of a fight, he dismissed her as a half-wit who couldn't manage more than a draw against a newly minted demon lord. Gardim had boundless confidence, bolstered by his hard-nosed fighting experience. Gardim the Beast King was the second most powerful man in the Empire. Born in the Beast Kingdom of Eurazania, which had long remained a mere rumor, he was the half-brother of Carillan, the Beast Master who once led that nation. The beast within Gardim was a proud, solitary white tiger, and his notoriously selfish streak had rendered him unfit for Eurazania's throne long ago. Consumed by an unjustified grudge, Gardim harbored anger towards those who hadn't joined him in the Empire, and instead allied with Carillan. The previous king of Eurazania, though not a skilled warrior, had a good eye for people, and chose the crown prince based on leadership qualities. This decision infuriated Gardim, leading him to murder his father. In the aftermath, he was subdued by Carrion and the three lycanthropeers, and banished from the kingdom for all time. The rebellion plot was merely a self-serving assumption on Gradim's part, far from the truth. Despite his grudge, Gradim's survival was a testament to his exceptional strength. He could have been one of history's greats had he possessed a more decent, approachable disposition, possibly even leading Carillan. However, that was a mere what-if. Instead, Gardim fled his homeland, wandering the continent until he met his most loyal followers, the three generals. Nazim, the vermilion bird, was a mutant harpy Gardim met while traveling through the winged nation of Fulbrosia. She had 3 pairs of wings, gray with purple spots. Despite losing the ability to reproduce, she gained outstanding fighting strength. Her striking, Frey-like good looks caught Gradim's eye, and his invitation to join him marked the beginning of their romantic relationship. Baraga, the azure dragon, was the master of an archdragon, a water dragon, that Gardim had defeated. Although getting on in years, Baraga's abilities placed him squarely in the middle of the Imperial Knights. Lastly, Gozaline, the black tortoise, controlled a Lorelei, an exceedingly rare rock sprite. A priestess from a foreign tribe, she mastered a variety of magical arts and joined Gardim after he defeated her Lorelei. These 3 generals came from diverse backgrounds, yet they shared one common trait, strength. Nazim was Demon Lord level, ready to potentially awaken at any moment. Baraga and Gozaline commanded Calamity-level monsters, making them formidable leaders of the Magical Beast Division. It was around 300 years ago, after Veldora was sealed away, that Gardim settled down in the Empire. After surviving the Tema War, he was running a de facto bandit gang in Imperial territory when he was defeated by a military strike force. Only when he swore to follow Emperor Ludora did he receive a pardon. Gradim's mission was to defeat the Marshal and become the most powerful figure in the Empire. Along the way, he sought any opportunity to murder Ludora and take the throne for himself. He harbored no particular loyalty to the Emperor or anyone else, carrying out their will only because they were stronger. Constantly searching for the right moment to turn traitor, Gardim harbored grand ambitions of ruling the world and naming himself emperor. Unbeknownst to Gardim, Ludora and his close confidants were fully aware of his intentions. However, Gradim's strength made him useful, so they kept him alive as long as he followed orders. This dangerous balance was maintained due to their shared objectives, but now it had been shattered. Gradim's realization that the marshal was Velgrynd the Flame Dragon left him stunned. He recognized that he couldn't win against such formidable power. Velgryn's strength was on a different dimension, far beyond his own. For this stroke of incredible luck in discovering Velgrynd's true identity before hatching his plot, Gardim thanked the gods above, even though he didn't believe in any of them. Gardim changed his focus, recognizing that defeating Velgrynd would require careful step-by-step preparation. For now, he decided to build his military reputation. His instincts told him that his awakening was near, with power greater than anything before it. The same was true for Nazim, who fought alongside him. Although the exact conditions for awakening were uncertain, the time seemed imminent. This urgency drove Gardim to seek out any battlefield he could find. Now before him was a field full of worthy enemies. The sight filled him with intense joy. He saw a legion of powerful adversaries, knowing that the more he defeated, the stronger his faction would become. "Let the merry feast begin," Gardim exclaimed. As expected, the battle intensified by the minute. The three generals serving Gardim moved according to their lord's directives, scanning the battlefield for formidable opponents. Their eyes locked onto King Gazel, known for his bravery far and wide. Defeating him would undoubtedly boost their fame. Baraga's warrior heart raged with desire to challenge King Gazel. However, Nazim felt obliged to stop him, reminding Baraga that Gardim was personally hunting for King Gazel. Defeating Gazel would do wonders for Gradim's power, and they couldn't let such a golden opportunity slip by. Serving their master came first, and with Gazel already wounded, Baraga agreed to seek other worthy opponents. Gozaline reassured Baraga, "Don't worry, you'll find many other stout foes here. Maybe not as many as you wished for, but you should find it satisfying nonetheless." The battlefield was indeed crawling with powerful figures. Baraga nodded at his companion, feeling no need to panic, and Nazim agreed. "Sir Gardim is correct. I'm sure the time of awakening is close by indeed. I, Nazim the Vermilion Bird, am bound to be the first to become a true demon lord," she declared. "Aren't you trying to hoard the best pickings now, Lady Nazim?" Baraga jested. Now, calm down. I'm sure we're all thinking the same thing. Sir Gardim can focus on King Gazel, and in the meantime, we can run as wild as we please," Nazim replied. They then declared their targets to one another to avoid any overlap. Baraga chose the weakened leader of the Dragon Utes, Nazim aimed for a sassy-looking lady flying through the air, and Gozaline targeted a golem to demonstrate the power of a Lorelei. With their targets set, the three generals set off for their prey. However, their confidence bordered on counting their chickens before they hatched. Just as predicted, Gardim targeted King Gazel. The strategy of attacking the strongest first made sense, especially since Gazel had already been weakened by Kondo. Now was the perfect chance. "I see you are King Gazel. I am Gardim, Commander Gardim, leader of the Empire's most powerful magical beast division, and I have come to take your head," Gardim declared. This approach was beyond cowardice. It was truly despicable. However, for Gardim, any means that achieved his goal were justifiable. As Gardim swooped down upon King Gazel, someone stood in his way. It was Gabriel the Dracolord, a dragon ute with reddish-purple scales glowing with electricity, previously written off as defeated. "Gwahahaha, I have returned, and your disrespect for King Gazel cannot go unaddressed," Gabriel announced. "Tch, you'd better stay out of my way, you accursed lizard," Gardim retorted. Gradim's displeasure at being interrupted turned to concern when he noticed Baraga. The azure dragon, meant to handle Gabriel, had been defeated in a single strike. Gozaline, the black tortoise, who was eager to face the demon colossus, was now in tears, her Lorelei smashed to pieces. Only Nazim, the vermilion bird, managed to hold her own against Soka. Even the soldiers ordered to defend Gardim were helpless against the revived Gabriel. The difference in strength was glaringly obvious. As Gardim prepared to step forward, he received an urgent magical call from Major General Zamdo. "We're in trouble. Reporting on the local situation, the demon lord Rimuru has done something terrifying. We must keep His Excellency safe at all costs, and so we're requesting reinforcements here at once," Zamdo reported. Gardim, though frustrated, managed to contain his words. What happened? He drew this giant, this impossibly enormous summon gate. "What are you talking about?" "I'm telling you that he summoned hundreds of demons, all greater demons or higher. And they've been given physical bodies too. Each one is above an A in fighting rank, but now they're acting as an organized fighting force." Zamdo's frenzied concern indicated the unusual nature of the situation. Despite this, Gardim remained unconvinced. The demon lord Rimuru had done something significant, but with Velgrynd on the Empire's side, he doubted a rabble of demons could defeat her. For Gardim, the immediate threat was the force opposing him, and that was where he wanted to focus his attention. "We're in the middle of a battle here. You're going to have to handle it with what's available at hand." Gardim practically spat out the words as he tried to end the call. But Zamdo's strained voice stopped him. "But sir, we're dealing with a truly apocalyptic demon army. They're far stronger than regular Imperial soldiers," Zamdo insisted. "Nonsense. You've got both Lady Velgrynd and the Imperial Guardians with you," Gardim responded. "The Imperial flagship, manned by the Empire's best forces, should have been enough. Yes, we do have Lieutenant Kondo and the Imperial Knights with us, but the Demon Lord's main officers are here, and we've got our hands full dealing with them all," Zamdo explained. "Their main officers?" Gardim thought incredulously. He had assumed the dragon youth before him was Gabriel, a top official from Tempest. This revelation meant the Big Four, Benimaru, Cheyenne, Diablo, and Gobta, were even stronger than Gabriel. "And that's not all. I know it's hard to believe, but the demon lord Rimuru has committed an abomination that no one could ever have imagined. I know not how he did it, but he has evolved this entire army of demons. Do you understand me? Hundreds of demons, powered up to the equivalent of archdemons," Zamdo reported. The situation was transcending all common sense. Gardim didn't want to believe it, but Major General Zamdo was a serious, meticulous man. Gardim had no choice but to believe him. Several hundred Calamity-class monsters had been released on the battlefield. "I see. Yes, Zamdo, I certainly understand your concern," Gardim conceded. "Ah, thank you. So please, consider my request for reinforcements." Zamdo ended the call with a sigh of relief. Gardim pondered for a moment. Outnumbering your opponent meant nothing if you couldn't outclass them in quality. That was the law of war. With 2 of his 3 generals down, it was dangerous to be optimistic. If it were Gradim's force alone, they'd be marching to their slaughter. Tsk. Did I make a tactical mistake, treating him as a mere demon lord? I may survive this along with the Empire's upper echelons, but we'd lose all of our rank-and-file soldiers to a man, no doubt. And if that's the case, Gardim thought, it was too late for regrets. All that remained was to do what he could, but Gardim still had one more forbidden skill to tap. The members of the Magical Beast Division were true elites, selected and trained by Gardim himself. Though hailed as born leaders from a legendary bloodline, the reality was they were artificial champions, crafted through a combination of magic and otherworldly knowledge. Each member, equivalent to an A rank or higher, was partnered with creatures whose biopolymer data was rewritten to endow them with extra, battle-specific abilities. These pseudo-androids, known as battle chimeras, were created by cultivating magical beasts in captivity and combining their various characteristics into one. Gardim, a lycanthrope, led the research into these chimeras, using his own transformation mechanisms as a basis for enhancing his soldiers. In this world, there were essentially no limits to research, ethical or otherwise. Large-scale experimentation on living slaves led to the creation of the most powerful army Gardim could have hoped for. These A-ranked champions and their battle chimera partners boasted unparalleled strength when working together, but their true value had yet to be demonstrated in public. Gradim's ultimate aim was to integrate divergent traits and qualities into a single being. To achieve this, a special medical skill known as the Beast was developed. This confidential secret, known only to Gardim and his 3 generals, was the culmination of their efforts, the fusion of soldiers with magical beasts. Based on the lycanthrope skill Animal Eyes, the beast ran off the animal elements in the battle chimera, combining man and beast into one and unlocking tremendous power for the caster. However, this treatment was extremely dangerous. Once administered, the skill forcibly took effect and could not be reversed voluntarily. The subject needed to be taken back to the laboratory hospital to flush the drug out of their body. The side effects were significant, with a 40% lethality rate. Some subjects were permanently stuck in magical beast form, while others went berserk or lost consciousness. Such outcomes necessitated disposal, with a 30% chance of these worse-than-death consequences. Those were the examples of complete failure they had seen, and in total, it meant that 90% of cases ended in some kind of failure. It was basically ordering someone to die, and even someone as egotistical as Gardim was hesitant to try it on his own people. He wanted to improve on this drug, increasing the success rate before allowing his soldiers to use it. But under these circumstances, he could no longer be picky. At this rate, the weak would all be killed anyway. Gardim knew that Emperor Ludora was an even more cold-hearted man than he was. The weak, in his mind, were worthy of being nothing but prey for the strong. In that case, administering this drug to his soldiers right now might be seen as an act of affection more than anything. Besides, if any fused beasts went out of control, they'd be useful decoys, and even if they couldn't revert to human form, they'd still be valuable assets. The only waste would be the 40% of soldiers and officers who'd die on the spot. But although there was some uncertainty, it'd absolutely result in a more powerful fighting team than what they had now. That in itself made it the right thing to do. Yes, there were still many unknowns about the drug's effects, and they might see some physical abnormalities, but we're talking 10% of the force growing stronger beyond any doubt. And on the battlefield, quality trumped quantity at all times. For those who knew that ironclad rule, upgrading 10% of your force was a very attractive temptation. The actual success rate, granted, was still unknown. They hadn't conducted enough trials yet, and there was the possibility of unforeseen side effects caused by people's individual physical makeup. Those possibilities couldn't be dismissed, but at least some people would survive with the powers of magical beasts in hand. The most successful of the successful, probably not even 1%, had been found to be perfectly compatible with the process. As a sign of admiration, they were referred to as Chimera Knights. And among those successes, "Guys, I just got a call from Zamdo. It sounds like the enemy's not playing around any longer. I want you to get up and rid us of them." Gradim's countenance was grim. Gabriel, taking a moment to realize Gardim wasn't talking to him, gave him a suspicious look. But he immediately recovered, tightening up his face and jumping out of the way. A moment later, a flash of silver light coursed over where he was. "Huh. Dodged that one? I thought it was a perfect surprise attack, but I guess I shouldn't underestimate you." "Underestimate? That's my line. How are you still standing after I gouged that giant hole in your chest?" Baraga the Azure Dragon confronted the retreating Gabriel, whom he had written off as dead. The gaping hole in Baraga's chest showed no signs of healing, yet he remained standing, an anomaly in a world crawling with magic-born. Gabriel, always vigilant, understood that in this realm there was no telling what one might encounter. "I remain safe thanks to Sir Gardim, granting me his almighty power. Now let me show you my true form," Baraga declared. A water dragon, or rather a battle chimera modeled after one, flew toward Baraga. As a chimera knight who had successfully awakened to his true potential, Baraga's unique bond with his partner meant neither would die as long as the other lived. Invoking the medical skill the Beast, Baraga recovered from his fatal wound instantly. Upon contact with the water dragon, Their bodies merged, leaving Baraga in human form but covered in dragon scales, his aura significantly stronger. Gabriel glanced at Gardim but realized Baraga posed the more immediate danger. Preparing for a one-on-one battle, Gabriel's resolve was challenged by Gradim's intervention. "This lizard's tougher than I thought. Let's kill it together," Gardim said. "Very well, my lord. I'll take the vanguard spot, Sir Gardim. You have the freedom to move," Baraga replied. "All right. You've got me helping you, remember? So don't screw up," Gardim added. Terms like chivalry or bushido weren't in Gradim's vocabulary. Recognizing Gabriel as a threat, he was ready to take every measure necessary to eliminate him. Enough of this. Even together you will realize how invincible I am," Gabriel exclaimed, revving himself up for the uphill battle ahead. The third of Gradim's generals, Gozaline the Black Tortoise, proved just as resilient as her peers. Just as Baraga had returned to the fight, the Lorelei that was once crushed to pieces was now restored. Ghidorah, piloting the demon Colossus, kept tabs on the battlefield and overheard Gradim's unsettling words. As he wondered who Gardim was addressing, he noticed Baraga back in action and tried to alert Gabriel. Before he could, he felt a chill and turned around to see a girl who had clearly undergone some alteration. Or was girl even the right term? Her metallic reddish-black skin resembled polished magisteel, giving her a majestic, non-human appearance. "Did you merge with the Lorelei?" Ghidorah asked. "I sure did. You're a wise man, Lord Ghidorah, and quite well versed in knowledge from other worlds as well. But we've taken a different approach," Gozaline replied, with a wicked smile. I'm sure you have. And I'll show you what I've come up with shortly, so let me know what you think," Ghidorah responded. Ghidorah realized that his earlier defeat of the Lorelei was an act, forcing him to reconsider Gozaline's strength. He was impressed by their ingenuity, noting the surprising success of genetic engineering in a world of magic. Monsters came in many forms, some lacking traditional genes, making comprehensive research challenging. The Empire primarily studied genetic engineering in medicine, but it seemed the Magical Beast Division conducted secret research too inhumane to disclose. Ghidorah, not particularly ethical himself, understood their intellectual curiosity but regretted not being involved. This left him uncertain about the extent of strength enhancement from such merging. Gozaline's power exceeded that of the demon Lord Clayman, making her inferior to Sare, a saint, but with an equivalent amount of magicules. Comparing her to the 10 dungeon marvels, she would likely surpass even Zegion before his awakening. Though magicule count didn't directly translate to strength, Gozaline posed a significant danger as an opponent. The Dragon Lords would be no match for her, to be certain. "I suppose I, too, had best treat this seriously," Ghidorah mused. "My, what an honor to receive such high praise from you, Lord Ghidorah. Feel free to savor this power to the fullest." Gozaline replied with a wicked smile before launching her attack. Her onrush felt like a 10-ton truck crashing at 200 miles an hour, even blowing the 10-foot, 30-ton demon Colossus off its feet. Calmly regaining control, Ghidorah shouted, "Purple Thunder!" A bolt of violet-tinged electricity shot out, capable of discharging 1,000,000 volts. Though voltage didn't equal power, this armament was primarily for looks, perfect for scaring dungeon adventurers. Amazingly, it worked on Gozaline. What? That's not magic. How do you control lightning without any magic?" she exclaimed, freezing in shock. "Well, it's a secret weapon, you see. Top secret. Sir Rimuru trusted me with it, and that's why I will never be defeated," Ghidorah declared. Riding high on confidence, Ghidorah analyzed Gozaline's onrush and found her entire body structure replaced with magisteel elements, a special ability of her Lorelei. Harder and heavier than steel, Gozaline's motion was unhindered, with her latent power now at Saint Level. It was a transformation that reeked of cheating, but Ghidorah still had the demon Colossus. "Take this, the ultimate in magic weaponry, Demonic Buster." The greatest of armaments fired away, with the firing control system linked directly to Ghidorah's will, eliminating any time delay. The Demonic Buster, named as a tribute to the demons, functioned as a magicule concentration device, It worked by harnessing the magicules inside the Colossus's magic furnace, and those naturally floating in the atmosphere, shooting them out at enemies. The term one-shot kill seemed invented for it. The demon Colossus's chest opened up, revealing Ghidorah behind a transparent layer. Placing one palm in front of the other, a ray of light burst forth, enriched with magicules and transforming into a deadly beam. Dusk, the former commander of the magic division, strikes again, does he? Gozaline, choosing to defend rather than evade, had an expression as hard as stone. Well, here we go. Magisteel Ultra Microwave.